All right, with me today on 10 Years in the Making is Erik Huberman. He is Hawke Media. He is the man, the myth, the legend. I'm sure every one of you know who he is and have heard of Hawke Media in the past, if not work with them. I'm going to ask him a bunch of questions that I'm curious about. He sits at a very interesting position in this Shopify ecosystem, having worked with and currently working with so many customers. So I just want to dive right into it. So Hawke Media, who do you serve? What do you do? What makes you different?
Sure. Hawke Media. So we serve companies that want to grow. And that is an important distinction because there's a lot of companies out there that hire marketing agencies but don't actually really want to grow. They're just kind of happy with where they're at. And we don't want to work with those companies. It's just not as fun. And so we serve, but it really is the full gamut of size from small SMBs, company out of your spare bedroom, all the way through the Fortune 500s, Fortune 100s. And what makes us different, it's funny, I get asked this a lot and I have a more robust answer and a quick answer. The quick answer is we actually know what we're doing. Sadly, it does make us that different in the marketing world because I'd say about 99% of agencies out there have no idea how to grow a business. And that's usually who we're competing with are the, small shops, don't know how to grow their own business, but sell that they can grow yours. Apparently they can make you billions of dollars, but they haven't made themselves $100,000. It's that kind of that's kind of the issue in the ecosystem is all these, snake oil salesmen. And that's why I started the company, was navigating that was such a nightmare. I was like, I'm just going to build my own team to help some companies I'm working with. So it's that, but really how we fulfill that. And our mission is accessibility to great marketing. So we want to be the best at what we do, but really easy to work with. And so what I found was the companies that are really easy to work with are not very good. And the companies that are really good become really hard to work with. And so I wanted to find that in between where it's like, why can't we serve, small companies, medium companies, large companies, and bring Fortune 500 marketing to the masses, have all the connections and the platform relationships and the discounts and everything, but use that for a long tail of companies that are really need it the most, that are trying to grow. And so that's what's made us different is, we are one of the top partners to Google, Facebook, Klaviyo, all retention.com, like all these companies that we really build partnerships and relationships with. We have a great team of marketers, but we're really easy to work with. We're month to month, a la carte, nimble, flexible. And yeah, that's the whole concept. And that's really what's propelled us.
So I know for us, the bigger a brand is, the more they're going to crush it. And it's kind of a function of if someone's got a bunch of money there already, it's easy for us to grow that 100%. And it doesn't matter if it's $500 or 500,000, it's still going to grow 100%. And the pricing doesn't increase with is that the same for you to an extent?
It is, but and this is where it's two things in terms of working with the smaller side of things is yes, absolutely. I understand why a lot of agencies go enterprise and I get the picture. And you're going to make more money and it's going to be a stabler customer. At the same time, I do still rest on principle a little bit where it's but these companies, there's a huge market there and they need it. So if we can manage that profitably and actually service these smaller companies, why wouldn't we attack that market that's completely underserved? And that's where it came from. And we have, we can serve small and medium businesses profitably. So is it more profitable to serve larger companies? Yeah, at times. But again, it's doing both is great because then you get a diversity of clients. We've just did a review on our client concentration, which is super important for agencies because Phelps, legendary agency in LA that was really widely renowned, 85% of the revenue at the peak was Whole Foods. When they sold to Amazon, they got fired and Phelps is gone. So you got to be really careful on that concentration.
That's
so instead,
scary.
For us, the biggest client we have is I think 1.1% of our revenue on an annual basis. So
beautiful. Yeah, we're kind of in the same boat being a SaaS, who serves the same companies, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
How small is small? If somebody goes to you and they have 300,000 GMV a year, are they a Hawke Media candidate?
So what I say is the small is $10,000 a month in marketing budget, all in.
Yeah.
And that's really where we start. If you have less than that, don't hire anyone. You need to go build your business.
Right.
That's literally the reason we start there is not because $5,000 we're too good for that. It's because we can't get a lever on 5,000 to actually show returns and get growth. And frankly, the founder needs to go find some money, whether it's raising money or generating some capital. You bootstrapped, I bootstrapped. You got to go sell some shit, make some money, and then go hire a marketer. Yeah. They're not going to start your business for you. So
right.
That's
our. And then you said you were solving a problem for yourself. Did you have another agency before Hawke Media?
No.
How'd you get into this?
I had two e-commerce companies. So I was I was so sick of And then what happened with the real impetus of Hawke Media was I sold the last one. I started advising and consulting for a bunch of brands. And then I tried to hire in-house or agencies to execute on the things I was advising on. And I just was navigating, like, thankfully I knew what I was doing, so I could call bullshit on some of these companies. But I knew that 95% of my customers would have never been able to do that if I wasn't there. So I'm like, wow, there is a ton of crap out there. Like, I don't know a founder that doesn't have a bad agency story. It's pretty ridiculous. So,
I mean, I have as many bad agency stories as agencies I've worked with.
Right, exactly. And it's like,
you know,
99% of agencies are full of shit. I haven't had anyone go, no, they're not. Like, no one's ever challenged that number because everyone agrees. Like, it's incredible the amount of crap that's out there. And the part of the problem is there's also been the past decade, there's been this like encouragement for every charlatan to jump into the agency world. So it's just part of the landscape. But when I saw that almost a decade ago, I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this. And that's where it came up. Because again, there are other good agencies. I never deny that. But they're few and far between, and they generally go up market. So they ignore the small and medium businesses.
Right. So a kind of personal question here. Do you actually like being the founder and owner of an agency? Do you like that business as sort of like, because like I know, I'm SaaS, right? So like I talk to all these D2C guys and they're just like, if they get drunk enough, they're like, man, I just want a fucking SaaS company. Like, what's your view on agency, as a business that you own?
The grass is always greener is how I look at it. Like, I've been able to build a 250 person company with zero outside capital, do whatever I want to do. And does that come with a burden and a stress? And is it a volatile business that you're dealing with, especially right now with like the whole economy being shaken for a year and everybody being nervous about, growth? Like, yeah, there's times where it's not going to be as fun. I don't know a industry or like SaaS companies, the same thing. Like valuations dropped 70% for SaaS companies the past year. Like, it's not like
probably dropped a lot more in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, right.
With the Silicon Valley Bank bank news.
Yeah, it is, and that's literally while I was getting on this, I was texting with our head of venture saying like, what exposure do we have? Like Hawke Media is not exposed. We don't bank with them, but we're looking at our banks, which I won't name, and going, this bank actually might have some problems. Let's wire more money out of there and just leave what we need in there, but don't hold any money in that bank because who's coming next? And we're watching that too. But yeah, that's what I'm trying to say is like navigating any business has its ups and downs. SaaS has looked really good for a decade with free capital. It's been a really good place, but that's also because we know all the winners. Like, how many times have people spent millions of dollars building out software and then they get no customers and it doesn't go anywhere? Like, it's with whereas
80% of the time.
Right. And whereas an agency, you start day one, if people buy it, you keep going and you just keep going as long as people keep buying it. And so there's no CapEx, there's no upfront cost. So I do like it. On the other side of it is it's fickle. People can have a bad day and fire you. Like, there's a line in Mad Men. The first day you get a client is the first day you start losing them. Like, it's part of the game in that, that part's annoying because marketers by nature are chasing shiny objects. And so it's hard to keep clients. I'm saying really long term, like keeping them for 20 years. Whereas like an accounting firm, when they sign a big business, it's very rare they go find a new accounting firm. Like it's just the business is a little different. But again, you can speak to the downside of any industry. Like I say that about accounting firms. I also could never fucking be an accountant all day. So
right, 100%. So correct me if I'm wrong. I listened to a podcast you were on a few years ago. Your pricing is somewhat more flexible than a normal agency as well, right? Isn't it like month to month in many cases? And like people can, I love that, by the way. Like, we're selling annual deals now, but like when we were developing our product, I wanted to be month to month because I wanted to be taught with churn that my product sucked, I think it's an incredible standard to hold yourself to. Like, and actually I got it from reading the Richard Branson book, like whichever like the one about his building businesses. He did the Virgin USA cell phone thing, and he's like, I wanted to do a monthly deal because like, to hold me accountable. Yeah, that's great.
And that was really it. Like when I started this, it was like, I don't need contracts if we do good work and we communicate well with our clients. Like they're gonna, unless they go bankrupt, which then my contract's fucked anyways. So it's like they're not going to hire me if I do good work and I communicate well. Now there's nuance to that. There's a small percentage of people that are idiots and we've been fired doing great work and crushing it for a business, and the shiny object thing comes in. So, but again, it's like the cost of that versus how many customers were able to get in because they're not scared of trying it out. We stuck with it.
Totally. I love that. So audiences large, Shopify store owner operators, they love tactics. If one of them shows up at your doorstep now, is there something that is like an almost universal pitch that like no one is doing that you're going to provide? Like, what would you say is something most of these, Shopify Plus stores are missing that like,
It's funny because I don't know why, because it's ubiquitous at this point, but I'm going to give an easy answer and a more deeper answer. So the easy answer is SMS marketing. Like I still don't know, like it should be just a part of the tech stack now, and it's not for many, many companies. And so easy one. I think frankly what you guys are doing, like you're just capturing so much more data and so much more audience. Like retention.com is another one that's like, it's just do it. Like it's not, there's no question here. You're trying to build a business, like you should check these boxes. And then the thing we've launched recently that is getting really compelling really fast, that we have about 2,000 paid users on so far, is Hawke AI. We now have benchmarking data across 8,000 brands. So we can actually go in and identify exactly where the weak points are in your performance marketing and your revenue data and your different traffic channels, and go, this is where you're missing compared to your industry. This is how much you're overspending on Facebook. This is what's happening here. And the problem is people continue to look at their data versus what they did the last quarter or the last year-over-year data, which that's all bullshit. Like, especially the past 3 years, it doesn't mean anything. So you need to know what's going on in the market now compared to what you're doing. And we've been able to build that. So that's been something that's been really helpful across our businesses.
All right. You heard it from Erik Huberman first. SMS, retention.com, and Hawke AI.
Yep.
Love it. And then within SMS, like flows, right? Like, or is it just, how do you think about that? Like, I think about the world as like flows are like the most valuable thing in the world because I make flows better. But like, do you sort of, like what would you do if you're starting an SMS program, what would you like tell a sort of brand that was like, I don't know if I should do it. Like I was talking to Bird Dogs yesterday. I'm like, I don't know, man. It's like, dude, like at least set up a cart abandonment flow, dude.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah, I would say that's number one. Yes, cart abandonment. But it's opt-in. They're giving you a phone number. If they give you their phone number, they're going to hear from you and they can say stop and it's gone. Like it's not like we dealt with this with email a decade ago where people were like, oh, I don't want an email white box because I'm just going to annoy my customer. Like, and they're like, we don't want to be like those other brands. Like there's a reason those other brands do it. Like you're not like you can. And what's funny is like there's data behind annoying a customer. It's called a bounce rate. Let's put in the light box. Let's see if people bounce off your site. If they do, then you're right. By the way, that literally happens 0% of the time. Like it never happened. Right. We saw an increase in bounce rates. So it's like, oh, go figure. People are used to light boxes and it's okay. Same thing with SMS. It's like they don't have to give you a phone number, but if they do, why wouldn't you use it? And there's, we invested in PostScript, so to be transparent, but PostScript, like we invested because it's there's no barrier to entry. You can get on really easily, try it out. It works. You're going to spend the money at the level you use it. And the ROI on it is insane. For the people that want to give you their phone number and communicate with you through text, the ROI is insane. And and you'd be surprised how big of an audience that is now. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. People are getting more and more used to using text for that. So,
yeah.
But it's,
and you got so
overly like spammy and try to be as targeted and as targeted and as segmented as you can with your automation so that people feel like you're communicating with them and not sending them a 50% off sale the day after they just closed, bought some shit.
Totally. Yeah. Like, and you guys can help with voice and everything because this is what you do. Yeah. Rock and roll. That's great. So shifting gears, this is kind of getting more to the personal side of things. You do a ton of different things. So where does your motivation come from? This is what I find interesting. Like a lot of people would have stopped with Hawke Media and you have like 4 or 5 different other operations that are completely separate from it.
Yeah, it's a combination of two things. I don't sit still very well. So when things are stable, I go look to start something else or break something or do something. So, as we hit sort of thresholds of Hawke where things are humming, I'm like, okay, things are humming. So what do I do now? Well, I'm going to go do something. So that's part of it. Number 2 is really just a desire to get everything out of life that I can, like try everything, do everything professionally and personally. So, I have Hawke Media. About a year in, I was pushed by a friend to invest in their company, which I wasn't planning on being an angel investor, but I tried it, and their company's worth somewhere between 3 and 5 billion now. So it's like, yeah, it was great. And I'm like,
can you say what company it is, or is that something you're not?
FabFitFun.
It's what?
FabFitFun.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I know that one.
Yeah. So so that went well, and so then I said I should probably do more of this, and I did more of it, and it went even better. And I Then we raised a fund around it because it was like, we should keep doing this. And then our clients, that was how the fund started. And then it kept going. And it's like, well, this is working. So let's keep doubling down on it. And then, our first fund did incredibly well. Our second fund, we raised half of it in a week and we went 10x the fund. So it was, it just keeps growing and building, and we're able to be more of a player in that space. And it serves Hawke Media's core. We're investing in all the softwares we use for Hawke Media. So we're in Klaviyo, PostScript, TapCart, Fairing. Like, we're in a lot of the ecosystem. Yeah. And we would have invested in you if you raised money.
Well, I mean, it's just, this is why I wanted to talk to you, because you can almost see the future, right? Like, you hear me explaining to you what I do and you're like, well, everybody's going to do that.
Yeah.
Because you know them. You work with all of them.
You
right?
Plug in and you go, again, you look at the benefits of it, and obviously it takes a little more test, but you look at it and it's just a rational thing. Like, is this a tool that will make more money than it costs for the customer? And there's a lot of tools out there like SMS marketing that we looked at, because I was full thesis driven, that's going to work, because we're it costs you, cents to send a text message. And we know the conversions on email. We know text messages are going to have a higher efficacy, because if they're giving you their phone number, they give a shit. This is going to work. And it's the same thing with a lot of things we invest in. It's we need that right now. Our clients need that. And then we actually try it. We go, let's see if we can intro a few clients. Then it works. And then we double down. So the most recent deal we did was Superfiliate. We, onboarded a bunch of great brands onto that platform and they all loved it and went, great, let's put some money in. And it is that simple for us on the investment side, because there isn't better due diligence. Do companies want it and keep it? Let's go.
Yeah, those two seem absolutely hand in hand. It's if you're how much time do you spend managing the agency now? Do you?
A lot. Yeah,
mostly a lot. So you're still in the weeds. You're hearing about successes and failures and what they're using and what they're not.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's like a very natural extension, if you have access to capital, to just be. How much of the venture portfolio are these software in the tech stack of Hawke Media? Is it all, or is it most,
no,
or
it's most, though. I mean, if they're not, we better have a really strong thesis as to why. Because really, my favorite investments are the ones that we can just onboard a couple hundred clients onto and be off to the races.
Right.
So if we're not doing that, which is what we've, again, the ones I named, those are examples. So it's if we're not doing that, we better have some really interesting thesis around it. And the first fund, we were a little more eclectic. We said we'd take 30% of the fund and go opportunistically into deals that we just have access to. Because the other thing is, aside from MarTech, which all want us in their deals because of that sort of horsepower, a lot of our brands that we work with want us investors, because we're a top marketing firm, and they're like, yeah, it'd be great to have you on our cap table. So we get deal flow like crazy. So the first fund, we were a little more open to it, and we invested in some e-commerce brands. We invested in AirVet, which is telemedicine for veterinarians, some really cool deals that have nothing to do with our core thesis. In this fund, we decided let's stick to the core. Not saying those are doing great, but it's those were really unique situations, and we were also managing less money. And so when you're writing smaller checks, you can take some of these bets. Now that we're putting real dollars to work, we're putting $1-2 million into some of these deals. It's now we need to be really core and disciplined. Yeah. And so then we launched Hawke Capital, which is the finance.
Yeah, tell me about that. That was another one of my questions.
That was more
Hawke Capital.
Yeah, we'll scale businesses really fast, and then they'll run out of cash. And they have great business, but there's a working capital component to marketing that it's you gotta, when you there's a whole marketing diatribe that I go on, but there's a purchase cycle from when you send someone an ad to when they actually buy. There's a time period, and honestly, from what we see, it's usually a month. Which means if I'm scaling your marketing, your payback cycle is a month. You got to float that money somehow. So if you want to scale fast, you need more access to capital. That's where that came from. We can now help with that. And so that was where Hawke Capital was born. And, it's sort of just a side offering. That's not as core, a core business. It's more of a side offering, but that's been great. And then, we spent.
Can I ask about Hawke Capital? So what are the types of loans that you do? And the reason I'm asking is because I was just at the Whaleys, and Ron Shaw was up there talking about creating a negative cash conversion cycle by using Parker's credit card, and then whatever it is that you pay the ACH with the credit card or something like that. Is it shorter term loans, or is it a 5-year deal you're doing? What's the, is it the need of the company?
We just syndicate it. So we just we have tons of partners. Our view is to be the kayak of these different working capital loans, and just let's find the best deal for the customer with a bunch of different partners. So let's go get all the details we need, go to a bunch of partners, find the best interest rates, the best terms, what do we need, and then they get the offers. So
How big is that? How big are these teams that are like the venture and capital? I mean, that's such a stupid question. I'm just like curious.
venture's 3 people and capital's two
Yeah.
people. Like it's because then they use the infrastructure at Hawke that we don't need them to have
Yeah, of course.
another this that. But dedicated, that's it. Um,
Yeah.
and then
But it's like the venture firm in particular. Well, both of these, it's like all of it's like all of their jobs is being done for them by the agency already. You know what I mean? Like the sort of
exactly.
intellectual part of it or whatever. If that, I mean, not to discredit them if
No,
you're listening to these people, but like it's just such a beautiful ecosystem. It really
that's
is.
literally what we're trying to build, like both externally and
Yeah.
internally, the full ecosystem. And so the last piece of that really was what we launched in September, which is Hawk AI, that software component, because it was like now we're aggregating all this data that we have. And instead of anecdotally saying, oh, this is what's working and what's not and how things are shifting, now we have the data right in front of us. How many companies are actually using SMS, et cetera. So, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So I imagine this is because you were finding yourself sitting still again. You're expanding to Europe and China, I hear, from Mr. Lossoff.
Yeah, yeah, we have been. I mean, we've had someone in China for a couple of years now, and then we've had a European team for a couple of years now as well. So we've been working on that. We've always it's been years that we've been doing business with Chinese companies, European companies, all over Asia, all over the world, frankly, that want to come to the U.S. And that's still pretty much the focus is how brands all around the world that want to enter the U.S. and how do they reach a U.S. consumer? Like we did Alibaba's expansion to the U.S. as the digital
Oh,
partner.
cool.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
and that was a while ago. So it's been a long time that's been a part of it.
Did you find someone there or did you send someone over there?
Uh, Actually, we in China, my EA of 3 years was from China and went to school here, and my EA from China went to school here, and she worked for me as my EA. I think it was 2 or 3 years, and then when Trump came in, he banned all Chinese visas. And so she had to go. The only way she was able to stay in the U.S. was we couldn't keep her employed. We weren't allowed to. So she got her MBA, which allowed her to be a contractor. So we brought her back as like a BD contractor. Then COVID hit and she wanted to go back to her family outside of Beijing. And she's like, but I still want to work here. We're like, well, let's go figure out if we can make something work over there. And that's how it started. So it was
Yeah.
like early 21. She went over there. And that's why like 2 years of actually being proactive, bringing in Chinese brands. But we had brands before that, but then we had someone that helped build out over there.
Yeah. Cool. So very active in philanthropy, I also hear.
Yep.
Is that you personally, or is that sort of related to Hawk? Like, how is that?
Yeah, I mean, I've served on the board personally. I have a couple nonprofits. My philanthropy side, I'm all about education because I just feel like it's kind of the teach a man to fish thing. Like, if I can help people figure out how to solve problems, and I don't need to solve them, like, it's kind of the idea. So, helping with like
Yeah.
entrepreneurial education, I'm really about. And so, I was on the board of Build.org. I've donated to a company or a nonprofit called Orphan Starfish for a decade, and advised for them. I have worked with Nifty, which is another entrepreneur classes and schools. And then we built our own called 5 Forward Academy, which basically takes inner city high school kids and teaches them digital marketing skills to give them, a job opportunity, so to speak, including with us.
That's
But
amazing.
yeah, it's a widely needed skill now, and we have a whole team to teach it. And so it was pretty easy to spin up and just start doing it. We partnered with the Vermont Sauce and Economic Development Council, which is kind of South Central LA, and did a series of courses. And now we're just building it out with more partners.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I mean, clearly like you're beyond what almost anyone would envision as their level of when they would deem themselves successful. What is the end game? Like ecosystem, sure, but like if you look out 10 years, like what's a sort of clear version of that picture of the ecosystem thriving? Like what do you want it to, what do you want all this to become?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at this point, I don't think there's much additional, how do I put it? Like new departments. It's now getting it all humming. It's like I think at this
Right.
point we've got the players, so to speak, and now it's all the integration and the operational side, and that's been an interesting transition, almost like the past year. Is like okay, like I've been building the next thing for a while. Now we have it. Now, how do we operationalize it more and more and more and really scale with it? And that's really what we're focused on right now. So how do we turn that data platform from 2,000 companies to 200,000? How do we get the core agency humming in all these different territories, but at 5x the size? How do we get the fund and a cycle that we can start deploying, $50 million every 2 to 3 years and keep that cycle going with great new tech coming in all the time that's helping build out this marketing ecosystem? Because, and really just figuring out how do we get that, again, all like seamlessly humming versus just up and running.
So do you view that as a people problem? Or is this something that you are internalizing in sort of?
It's people and process. I mean, it's always both, I'd say. Sometimes there's process that people don't follow, so it's a people problem. Sometimes there's great people that don't have a process to follow. So, but it's both. It's, continuing to bring on great people as well as, working with the people we have to step them up. And then again, there's so much process opportunity always. Like I heard an anecdote, who said it? It was some conference. I've been at way too many conferences recently, but someone said this and it was like so true. It's like, there isn't a company on the planet that isn't just organized chaos. And I think every CEO would relate to that. Like Apple, Google, Facebook, I don't care. Look at SVB today again, like commenting on that. Like that was one of the biggest tech banks, probably the biggest tech bank in the world, like gone. Like it is all organized chaos, and anybody that thinks otherwise is just fooling themselves. There is no company that's just stable, steady Eddie. Like now there are investment companies that are. If you're a private equity fund or you're a real estate company, like generally the chaos is a little lighter, but operating businesses is controlled chaos. And so what I'm looking at is how do I build more control around the chaos, and so that we can have a lot of predictability, stability, because that's where longevity comes in. And if you can last through, like that's been almost, I would say it wasn't invited the first year, but now that we're a little over a year into this whole slowdown, now it's kind of welcomed, because it's almost like a prove your worth kind of thing, where it's like if you can get through all this crazy shit, it's going to be a great the other side, and like and a lot of people are going to be out of the way. And so that's been really kind of fun to watch in a weird way. Like even with this SVB thing, we're talking about, well, what of our portfolio companies aren't exposed, and what of their competitors were? Like, sounds cutthroat, but welcome to business.
Yeah, so, totally.
Yeah, it's an interesting. So back to the point. Like what I'm focused on is creating this solid foundation that then we can start to build up with what we have, because I don't think it needs that much more complement anymore. Like Hawke AI has a lot of innovation that we have coming into it to like really truly be AI. Like there's a lot of things that are going to like continue to evolve, but I don't know that there's going to be Hawke XYZ coming next.
Right. And it sounds like you just want to keep doing this, which is great. Like 20 years from now, like Hawke's just going to be a bigger beast, a bigger Hawke or whatever.
Yep. Yeah. And one thing we are looking at, like our M&A side has become really powerful. We just literally closed a deal today that we'll be announcing. So we've just did our 10th acquisition, and like we're starting to really figure out how to get that humming. And that could be where scale gets really interesting, because growing by adding like a salesperson in a territory and finding some brands, like that becomes slow at this size. And so now it's like, how do I find full teams that I can just bring in, give them our infrastructure, get scale there? And that's why a lot of the big companies you watch them buying a lot of like Facebook gets a lot of their value from Instagram, like finding those places. That's where I'm spending a lot of my attention to figure out like, what is that strategy? Not what is that strategy, but where can we find more opportunity that I didn't even think of? Because that's where like Hawke AI kind of came out of that too. We bought a software company with the data we had, and that's what turned into Hawke AI. It's like, where else can I get creative about this stuff?
So what types of companies are you looking at? Is it other agencies, or is it software, or like, what do you say M&A? Like,
yeah, it's mostly agencies, but that's what I'm saying is like, I don't know what, like we have a huge, funny enough, we have 2 people full-time focused on that as well. And they're grinding, and like things pop up that you're like, I didn't even think about that as an opportunity. But now that I think about the synergies, like, a hypothetical conversation, because I had this the other way, we could maybe end up buying a distribution company that helps people get into stores. Not an offering we had before, but they have all these brands. We have all these brands. Like that's the kind of stuff that like, I don't even know what expansion might happen through those conversations too. And it's fun to just be opportunistic and open to those.
Right. And what makes an agency a good acquisition candidate versus a bad one? Like who if agencies are listening to this, like who's a good candidate?
For us, we're just looking for great teams, great business, in a well-managed business. Like that I would say that we can be a hockey stick for. Like I want to see that like the pain they're dealing with is they need some operational infrastructure, some back office, we want to take all the operational burden off the founder's plate so they can just focus on growth. That's the best case scenario. Or a complementary service that we're not offering that could be, again, like I just mentioned with distribution, like that could be interesting. But really, most of the deals we do are like founder is a great biz dev salesperson. This is pretty typical of an agency founder, but they're getting pulled into HR and finance and all this other stuff. It's like, yeah, we have big teams for all that. So we're going to take that all off your plate. We're going to give you a lot of juice and rocket fuel, and we're going to go grow this together. And that's the best we're looking for. And again, they have to have
Awesome.
do good work. Those are kind of like table stakes.
Dude, well, I think I got everything I wanted. This is a fascinating conversation. So I usually wrap it up with these two things. If you could write one thing on a billboard, what would it be?
We on a billboard. So
yeah, just like, so everybody could see, like, is there some, hill that you would die on top of just like a statement, right?
So mine has always been like the quote that it's not even a quote. I don't know if anyone said this, but it's always been, I'd rather regret what I did than regret what I didn't. That's a big driver for me.
I love that.
Yeah, so it depends who I'm talking to, but that's words that echo in my head constantly. It's like, I'd rather just go do things and try things. So
that's a good billboard.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Cool. Then the final 5, where do you live?
Santa Monica.
And relationship, family status?
Wife, 6-month-old.
I have a 6-month-old too. I mean, we talked about this before. So what is your favorite book?
Favorite book, other than my own? Gotta see right here. Got to do the plug. Hawke Method, 30,000 copies.
Yeah,
sold.
the Hawke Method. I'm gonna buy it.
Appreciate it. But honestly, I was getting into the music business like a year out of college in 2009, and I read this book called Appetite for Self-Destruction, and it was about the music industry's ability to basically screw themselves over and over again because like they didn't the companies that wouldn't get it with it when CDs came out and they said it's all about Betamax, and when CDs when Napster came out and they just fought it instead of creating their own digital, and then Apple owns iTunes. Why doesn't a record label own iTunes? Like it was just fascinating from a business perspective to understand like it's not just the music industry. Like people hate innovation when they get there. When the business is working, they're like, this isn't going to work. They want to believe that things aren't going to disrupt them, and they resist disruption, and so they don't end up disrupting themselves. So really like that book because it really set me up to continually. That's where Hawke AI came from. It's like, what do I think would actually displace some of what we do? And it's really marketing AI starting to do some of the tasks we do. Well, great, let's build it. So
yeah,
that was a great one.
I love that.
Appetite for Self-Destruction.
Cool. I'm going to definitely read that one. Is there a person you're following that you think is worthwhile for the audience?
I'm not a big follower.
Yeah, I'm not either.
Yeah. Most of the guys that like the social media, like people that are like that active, they're not doing that much other than posting on social media. My favorite, this came from my dad. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was like 17. I went to my dad and was like, this is brilliant. And it's actually a great book. I don't want to discredit this, but like, this makes sense. Da, 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 da. He's like, this guy's made so much money doing this. My dad's like, you know how that guy made money? I'm like, how? He's like, selling fucking books.
Yeah.
Relax.
Yeah, to assholes like you.
Yeah, so it's like when I see all these social media people, it's like, you know how they make money? Like all these guys are like, I can coach you to be a coach, to be a coach. It's like,
totally.
No one's making money there.
Yeah, I hear you. So what's your favorite vacation you've ever been on?
Oof. I travel a lot. I'd say probably Rwanda, hiking with the gorillas.
Amazing. I've never been to Africa, but I really need to do it.
Oh yeah, we did safari for honeymoons. We did Tanzania and Kenya, and we did. And then when we were there, everyone was telling us that the gorillas is like this crazy thing. You have to try it. And my wife's like, that sounds like a once in a lifetime opportunity. I'm like, I agree. We should do it next year.
So you went back?
We just went back. Yeah. Well, we actually ended up having to punt a couple of years because of COVID, but we tried to go back.
Right.
And then we ended up doing it. And like literally, you just walking through the jungle with machetes and an armed guard, and you just all of a sudden it opens up and there's 20 gorillas like right there, and like they walk right up to you. It's insane, like just a crazy experience. So that was one of the coolest, just the whole thing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you so much.